7 pops to your worldview bubble. Have you noticed how our current political debate rages and bounces from left to right? Western civilization is either rampant neo-colonialism or the foundation of all that is right and good in the world. Burn it all to the ground versus dig your heels in against progressive change. Capitalism will destroy the world in the red corner, fights capitalism will save the world in the blue corner. Regardless of which side you tend to lean towards, I'd like to try and annoy you all, if I can, by presenting a series of statements designed to pop, or at least prod, the illusion that you've built around yourself and the world you think you live in. These are my illusions too, I'm just as fallible as the rest of us. 1. Your clothes were made by slaves. No matter where you shop, your fashion is only made possible by a system of work that for all intents and purposes is slavery. That t-shirt, likely stitched in a factory where workers are paid less per day than your morning coffee. The cotton, possibly picked in Xinjiang, where Uyghur Muslims are used as forced labour. Still proud of how ethical your shopping is? Still talking about fair trade like it fixes everything? If you or I went to watch how our clothes were made, if we saw the conditions these workers live in, I don't think you would champion the market system for providing for us, satisfying supply and demand. I don't think you would tell them to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. I think you'd be sick. I think you'd thank your goddamn lucky stars that you lived the life you do. Maybe you'd remember all those films about slavery that made you feel outraged at the injustice. How you knew in your gut you'd never let that sort of thing happen around you. How you cheered when statues of slave owners were torn down. More concerned about distant injustice than the system you operate in right now. You thought your clothing could be grown, dug up from the ground, stitched together on the other side of the world, flown and shipped over to you, and sold at a markup that still makes the company owners incredibly rich, in a way that's fair, without slavery? Yeah, you're smarter than that. 2. That electric car you're so smug about, it was built using metals mined by children. It runs on cobalt and lithium, metals mined by children in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, often barefoot, in collapsed tunnels, breathing in toxic dust. Then it's assembled in emission-belching factories powered by coal, shipped across oceans on diesel mega-freighters that pump more CO2 in one trip than you do in a year. And when that battery dies, you'll need another, draining rare earth materials needed for hospital equipment and renewable infrastructure. But hey, at least you're not driving petrol. 3. Your phone was built in a factory with suicide nets. That's not poetic metaphor, that's Foxconn, one of the world's largest manufacturers of electronics. The conditions were so brutal they had to physically stop workers from jumping off the roof. All so you can post a quote about #justice on Instagram. Oh yeah, and whilst we're talking about your posting, 4. You posted a black square on your Instagram and walked past a homeless man on the same day. You post infographics and slogans like they're incense offerings, but you haven't spoken to someone suffering right next to you in your own town in months. Your activism, your empathy lives online, curated, convenient, and comfortably removed. 5. You complain about how dead the high street is, as another Amazon parcel lands on your doorstep, wrapped in 5 layers of plastic, bought late at night after doom scrolling through another round of bad news. You hate what the world is becoming, while financing the very companies remaking it. Or maybe you champion the convenience of this system, Adam Smith's invisible hand placing blinkers on your eyes so you ignore the damage all your convenience creates. 6. You care passionately about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Understandably, it's a humanitarian tragedy, but now you've picked a side, you've shut off your critical thinking, decided you want it to be narratively neat. You've got the outrage, you've got the hashtags, and you don't need to hear any nuanced history. You know who the goodies and baddies are. And you haven't stopped to think why this is the conflict you and everyone you know is talking about every day. Maybe because your strong opinions are dictated by a narrow window shown to you on the news, and you don't bother to see if there might be other, larger injustices going on in the world. Let's see, shall we? When was the last time you posted about any of the following? Sudan. Over 14,000 civilians dead since 2023. Millions displaced. Entire cities bombed into rubble. Yemen. A civil war fueled by global arms sales, yes, including from the UK. Over 377,000 dead since 2015, according to the UN. The Democratic Republic of Congo. 6 million people have died in 2 decades of conflict over resources used in your gadgets. The Uyghur Muslims, up to 1.8 million in camps, surveillance systems, sterilization, and re-education. Yazidis, subjected to genocide by ISIS, women sold in slave markets, still waiting for justice. Ethiopia, 600,000 dead in a 2-year war, but no hashtags. And the Rohingya Muslims, ethnically cleansed from Myanmar, now stateless in camps and forgotten. All of this is worse by scale, if not brutality. So, why don't you care? Why haven't you heard of them? Because it's messy, because there's no main character, because you grew up on Disney, not Dostoevsky. You want heroes and villains. You want clean lines. Life doesn't offer that. 7. You dismiss people whose views you disagree with. You negatively label them racist, selfish, stupid, Ramona, gammon, covidiot, turf, loony lefty, and on and on and on, rather than engage intellectually with the ideas in good faith, even though you know that's what you should do, and you know that nuance matters, and that's not how we build a cohesive society, and you know that your feeling of self-righteousness, of being right when they are clearly wrong, evil, immoral, is lazy, simple Disney thinking. You read about polarization ruining society, but you think, yeah, but that doesn't apply to me because my enemies actually do deserve it. They deserve to be ostracized. We shouldn't engage with them because they are stupid, evil, selfish, immoral, and on and on and on. And your enemies? They think the same. So where does that get us? So what? None of this is your fault. Well, unless you happen to be reading this, Larry Fink. We were born into a system that is all-pervasive and very difficult to change, and we benefit so much from it that it's much easier to ignore the downsides and enjoy the benefits. Let's just not delude ourselves into thinking we are heroes, or brave, or even just in any way, because unfortunately, if we were as moral as we think we are, our lives wouldn't look like this.